Well, on today's show, we've got a racist BBC presenter, King Charles has dealt a new blow, vanishing migrants, and drivers face a new fear, and much, much more. Let's begin. Okay, first up, let's go to this utter penis, in my opinion, at the BBC. His name is Nahel I don't know, he must need a dictionary to look up his name. Anyway, I'll put it on the screen for you just there. He says that apparently too many white colleagues affects his mental health. According to this article, I mean, it's very nice of him, isn't it? Can you imagine if it was the other way round and someone said that there was too many black colleagues that was the problem? No doubt they'd be cancelled overnight, wouldn't they? But no, it must be okay if it's the other way round. Which, in my opinion, is utterly disgraceful, especially in this day and age when we've got so many anti-discrimination laws. The article says that BBC Radio Live presenter Nithal Atharek, I hope I pronounced that right, but I'm guessing I didn't, says an overwhelmingly white workforce has an impact on his mental health. Speaking to a journalism diversity conference on Wednesday, he said there are no Muslim workers involved in the senior editorial process at Radio 5 Live. He said, it's really affected me, and that I walk in and I see all these white people. To be honest, goodness knows how he gets on when he goes to Tesco's or Asda or wherever he does his shopping from. I mean, does he put some sort of sunglasses on so he can't see all these people? But that's not it, because he claims his colleague's response when he revealed this was to apply defensively and say they were not being racist. But he says this was missing the point, reports The Telegraph. And at the Journalism Diversity Fund, the JDF, conference held in Media City in Salford, he continued, I've seen a lot of people leave this building because they couldn't deal with the culture. Well, to be honest, I could be wrong, but if anything, it kind of sounds like it's the other way round and he is the one who can't actually deal with things. When he probably applied for the job, I'm guessing there are probably a lot of other white people already working there. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt he had a problem with it then, before he had the job. So what's his problem now? And if anything, it kind of reminds me of this whole terribly white comment that this woman made when the royal family were all out on the balcony. I mean, I'm guessing there's nothing they could do about that, eh? But it just seems like it's never enough for some people, does it? And, of course, a lot of the time these people do tend to play the race card a bit, don't they? But more often than not, in my opinion, they are the ones who tend to see things with different colours, while the rest of us tend to look at people as people regardless of their skin colour. What's the BBC said about this? Let's see. The BBC has not commented on Athan's, I can't say his name, claims. Well, there's a surprise, eh? Well, hopefully they will do sooner or later. Well, next up, we've got civil servants. You know the ones who seem to have a terrible problem of actually going into the office, but strangely don't have a problem when going around the supermarket, often appears, doesn't it? Well, these civil servants, or thousands of them, are considering quitting after being told to go back to the office 3 days a week. 3 days out of 5, which is of course a standard working week, or 7 days for a full week, but either way they'd still get 4 days at home. So what is their whole problem, especially if they're working from 9 till 5 or something like that? According to the article, new guidance was issued earlier this month amid fears too much working from home is harming policy delivery in Whitehall. Well, about time, eh? I mean, who would have thought that working from home you can actually do your job efficiently? I'm guessing some sort of light bulb must have went off in someone's head. No doubt, of course, while they were at home, but of course I could be wrong. The PCS union said that nearly 40% of its members said the change in rules had led them to questioning their future. The survey seen by the Times suggested as many as 4,800 people were considering leaving the civil service, or civil service in my opinion, because it does often appear that they'll do anything to skive off, eh? And obviously, don't get me wrong, I know in 2020 when the poo hit the fan, and COVID of course decided to show its ugly face, quite a lot of people did tend to work from home, and obviously this whole remote working culture sprung up, didn't it? But we've gone a long way since then. I mean, of course, you occasionally see the bell end in the supermarkets every so often wearing a face nappy on their face, don't you? There's no doubt say that they are nice, caring people wearing something over our face to protect everyone from a virus which, as far as I'm aware, is no more deadly than the common cold now. But us as nasty people, we don't do that no more. Even though, of course, in many cases you don't see them cover their nose or anything, do you? Masks, in my opinion, should be done away with completely. We should just go back to normal. And that is with everything, including getting off your arse and going back back to work. So whether the civil service like it or not, it's about time they'd done that. I mean, they're surely one of the last companies or organisations which are still working from home a lot of the time, it seems, with many of their workers. And we shouldn't have to put up with that, should we? It's our tax money at the end of the day, which I'm guessing pays quite a lot of their wages. No doubt, of course, they're probably saying, well, if you don't let me do this, I'll quit, hoping that their boss will just bend over and let them carry on. And if I was their boss, I'd say, see you later then, don't let the door hit your big head on the way out. Or actually, I'd give them the ultimatum. You either come to work or you go work somewhere else. Or join a job centre queue. It's entirely up to you. Next up, rabbits vanishing out of a hat. Well, this time we've got vanishing migrants. 17,000 apparently have vanished without a trace according to the Home Office. I mean, that is a large number. That's quite a few boats, I'm guessing. I mean, in that case, were the border forces working from home as well? Possibly saying something like, oh, stop it through the nest cams or something. Or, just busy eating their donuts. Either way, though, it's absolutely disgraceful, isn't it? 17,000 people, who obviously we have got no details on, I'm guessing, have probably placed themselves all over the country, and who knows what criminal records they might actually have. And therefore that is surely a massive risk to the public, isn't it? But anyway, the article says that sheepish, well, there's a surprise, civil servant Sir Matthew Rycroft and his sidekick Simon Ridley revealed they had lost track of them. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like they're a set of car keys, is it? MPs laid into the clueless mandarins as they floundered their way through a gruelling Commons grilling, and the pair were quizzed on the 17,316 asylum seekers whose claims were withdrawn last year because they failed to turn up to their interviews or stopped engaging. So hang on a minute. They must have been processed somewhere to have interview dates. So surely now, as I'm guessing, a lot of them just went, no, I don't think I'll go to those interviews. Shouldn't now, like for example, I don't know, they have to turn up at a police station, tax office, job centre or wherever else and sign on daily to say they're still there, or maybe, just maybe, and no doubt of course, all the human rights activists will probably hate me for saying this, well they probably hate me anyway, but they'll probably hate me even more for saying this, but shouldn't they be tagged? Or have some GPS put on them so we know where they are until they've passed all the checks. Because at the end of the day, if we don't know what criminal records these people have, they could seriously be affecting our human rights, couldn't they? Like the human right to a safe life. If some of them are violent offenders. I'm not saying they all are, so don't get me wrong, I'm just saying if some of them are. Because let's face it, when they journey over the sea, quite a lot of them do have slippery fingers, don't they, where they lose expensive iPhones or their ID documents or whatever else. But listen to this. Pressed on their whereabouts, Mr. Ridley said, in most cases, I don't know where those people are. And Tory MP Tim Lowton hit out, so you have no idea where these 17,316 people are. The majority of asylum seekers are not detained, meaning apparently they're free to roam, as long as they check in with the Home Office regularly. Well, don't you think that should now become daily, eh? Or sod it, hourly? Why not, eh? Through an app or something like that which actually gives their up-to-date location. And new powers to detain and remove illegal immigrants are yet to be used. Because of the Rwanda plan being hamstrung by the courts, well, as soon as we leave the ECHR, we might be able to actually deport some of the dangerous ones for a change. Wouldn't that be nice, eh? But to be honest, we've probably got as much chance as that happening as me having a meal for two with Catherine Jenkins. Next up, we've got what could be a glimpse into the future, and that is because a Labour-run Nottingham City Council declares itself, wait for it, bankrupt. Yes, that's right, as officials are slammed for breathtaking waste. I mean, who would have thought that, eh? Especially, of course, that's how well Labour apparently run the country last time, with that little note from Jeremy Corbyn, I think it was, saying, well, sorry, we run out of money. So it's no surprise, is it? And unfortunately, if things don't change pretty quickly, they might get in the 2024 general election, mightn't they? So what actually happened then? The article says that a Labour-run town hall which said it isn't able to deliver a balanced budget for this year, which is a legal requirement. And a Section 114 notice was submitted, meaning that all new spending, with the exception of protecting vulnerable people and statutory services, will immediately stop. Which, hang on a minute, people do pay their tax money, don't they? So you'd like to think that they would get something for that, like, dustbins being collected, grass being cut, or whatever. It doesn't actually say, unfortunately, what services are being stopped, which could be a massive problem for people. But so far, I can't actually see what the cause of all this is. Oh no, here you go. The council lost millions after it failed to attempt to enter the power market with the Robin Hood energy in 2020, and the financial situation worsened as millions of pounds ring-fenced for local housing were splurged as part of the council's general budget. Well, there you go. No doubt, of course, they probably bought £20,000 hammers, £10,000 light bulbs, or maybe, just maybe, had a massive staff party, eh? And in a statement, the authority said it has sufficient financial resources to meet current obligations to pay staff and supplies. Well, isn't that a relief? The statement added, at the halfway point of the year, the council is forecasting a gross general fund pressure of £57 million, which is partly being mitigated from a one-off in-year management and corrective actions. And to be honest, something like this does tend to make me wonder how much we'll see things like council tax and that be put up in future years to make sure that councils, are just safe and will be bankrupt in future and things like that. And speaking of bankrupt, we go back to the BBC again because, well, they're not bankrupt yet, but apparently they are now having to cut one of their legendary shows, as apparently it's known, down to 30 minutes to save some cash. No doubt, of course, because us people are cancelling a TV licence faster than Usain Bolt can run a 100-metre race. And the article says that the corporation has been tasked with finding £500 million in savings as a result of a 2-year freeze on the price of the TV licence. Well, I don't know. How about asking Gary Lineker for some money? Because let's face it, they pay him quite a lot of money, don't they, it seems. It has apparently already made changes to BBC News, merging its international and UK news channels earlier this year. Now, it has revealed that Newsnight, that programme that people watch to fall asleep to quite often, will face a number of cuts and changes. These include 10 minutes being taken off its runtime and over half of its staff members being let go from their roles. Its investigative firms will also be axed, with a focus on switching to studio-based debates instead. Well, perhaps that might mean we might get a balanced debate rather than being biased all the time, it seems. In many people's eyes anyway. There are apparently currently 57 members of the Newsnight team, and that will be cut to 23. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, how many people the BBC employs that they might not necessarily need, especially if they could get away with cutting back to 23, which is less than half of 57, isn't it? And yes, I know obviously the programme will be shorter, but surely 10 minutes you don't need an extra 34 staff members, do you? Well, in my opinion anyway, I could be wrong. The BBC News and Current Affairs CEO Deborah Turner said, when we started work on this announcement, I did not know if it would make financial sense to keep Newsnight on air. Well, perhaps if they'd cancelled it altogether, a lot of people might have been a bit more happier about that. Especially as Newsnight and quite a lot of the BBC's programmes are often seen by many people as quite biased. When, to be honest, a news programme shouldn't be biased at all, really, should it? Especially from a public funded service, because obviously people on both sides of the debate who obviously pay into the TV licence, so therefore it should be impartial. If, of course, you're relying on adverts and things like that, then it might be a bit of a different story. However, either way, the facts should be given, without the general Ramona swing on things, in my opinion. But don't worry, any BBC lovers out there, because the new team at Salford will also be boosted, apparently, by the fact that BBC Breakfast will be extended for an extra 15 minutes daily, meaning that it'll air from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Way great, eh? Well, next up, King Charles III, or as I'm guessing the Irish might call him, King Charles III, has been dealt a major blow because apparently support for the monarchy plummets in a brand new poll. The article says that new figures from Savanta UK show that 1 in 3, 34% of Britons now support an elected head of state, with support for the monarchy dipping to 52%. I personally am not really a royalist at all, but obviously I do understand that our country has traditions, which I'm guessing wouldn't change at all until it plummets a lot lower than that. Because obviously, at the moment, most of the country, I'm guessing, must just be happy to have the head of state whose only qualification to be the head of state is to come out of the Queen's fanny, rather than, of course, being voted on to be the actual best person for the job. And yes, obviously a lot of people out there say that they're good for tourism and they do a lot of good for charity. I've heard that before, and they're brilliant in World War II. But the thing is, so are a lot of people who obviously sacrificed a lot. But yet at the same time, we don't put those people up in palaces, castles, or give them loads of taxpayers' money, do we? But anyway, the article also says that YouGov released data on September the 8th, a year into King Charles' reign and the first anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death. Figures from the poll showed 62% of Britons had support for the monarchy, with only 26% expressing support for an elected head of state. Which of course means I'm in the minority, but I accept that. I know it's part of our tradition and there's nothing I can do to change that. And it will probably go on for many, many years, even when, Prince William's boy George becomes king. But surely at least some people might agree with me when I say that, do you think at the moment there's just a few too many hangers on? Shouldn't it just be from King Charles and his children downwards rather than his brother and sister and all their children? It does also say that support among older age groups has remained strong, with over 80% of over 60s backing the monarchy. monarchy, and that's perfectly fine. That's entirely their choice. In contrast, the level of support among young Britons was more divided, with just 37% of 18 to 24-year-olds wanting Britain to remain a monarchy, while 40% would prefer an elected head of state. And next up, of course, we got Jeremy Hunt, who may, just may, give us motorists a nice kick in the gonads. And of course, the 5p tax cut might actually get reversed. But there is hope, because apparently he also said that he maybe, just maybe, will look at that decision again in the run-up to the next election. Well, there's a surprise, the next election. That is when, of course, all parties out there seem to promise things like magic money trees. But you'd like to think, wouldn't you, that as the tax has been frozen for many years, it will more than likely remain frozen. But it also says that the Treasury will assess the state of the public finances ahead of the spring budget next year, before making a decision. And the budget watchdog forecasts for fuel duty rising at 1p above inflation, and keeping the cut will squeeze Whitehall budgets further. And who knows what inflation will be by then, because let's face it, at the moment, going by supermarket prices, that is quite high, isn't it? Especially 1p above that will be a massive blow to drivers on every litre of fuel. But at the end of the day, the Conservatives want to stay in power, don't they? So they're going to want to do all they can to try and impress us and woo us over the years. So I'm guessing that will more than likely stay. But, you know, of course I could be wrong. But then again, of course, this government do seem to be the master of U-turns, don't they? Just like in this video, which will obviously affect us all.